Hello and welcome to the Guts to Be podcast. My name is Tammy Davis and I am your host for this program. Today I want to talk about the guts to be abnormal. I know if you've listened to any of the other audios on the podcast, you know that I've recently done one, or I did one not too long ago on the guts to be different. So I want to just say that there's a whole different premise to this one. Okay. So I was on a summit yesterday. I was one of the speakers on the summit, a self-care smorgasbord, or smorgasbord of self-care. However, it was actually called Meant for More. And it was really beautifully done. I mean, it was really great. And while I was talking, the one thing that I said, that I've frequently said, but I really want to emphasize right now, and this is the reason why I'm asking if we have the guts to be abnormal, because we've done an extraordinarily awesome job at normalizing symptoms. So what do I mean by that? Well, for instance, period pain, abnormal. Menopause, hot flashes, abnormal. Okay, these are not normal symptoms. We are normalizing this. Right down to, I was just thinking about it before I came on here, the normalization. I've seen commercials, not necessarily on TV, but I've seen them on ads on YouTube that and I've heard, that once you've reached menopause, it's normal to put on belly fat. It's not normal. Although I did have issues as a young girl with period pain and PMS, it was no longer an issue as an adult. I was able to eliminate that. I did not have one symptom of menopause other than the fact that my monthly cycle just quit. That was the symptom. That's how I knew I was going into menopause, or I had gone through menopause, or was going through. It's a funny defining line right there. Erectile dysfunction is not normal, but my issue is that we are normalizing all these things and literally grooming our children to expect degeneration. And it's appalling. These things are not normal. They are issues of instability. Okay, they're issues of hormonal imbalances, is another way to say that. And it's all evidence of an active stress response, long, chronically active stress response. Now, you might be wondering, and here's the interesting thing. I get into these conversations a lot with people in my daily life, and I hear people go, but it is normal. Well, by definition, it may appear to be normal because there's plenty of evidence to show that these are common experiences. Okay, these are things that we have in common. It's not normal. Okay, the body's not defective, the body is not malfunctioning, the body is not mutated, and good Lord, get over your SNPs. All right. One of the things that I was sharing yesterday is like when we all willingly donate saliva for these genetic tests, and what you're really doing is contributing to an international database, because this is the ongoing study of the Human Genome Project. That's what this is. Yes, you get a reward. I've learned a lot about gamification just in the last week alone, which is, the incentive to continue to, to participate. So what's part of the gamification of submitting your saliva for a database? Well, you get these really wonderfully colored reports. red, yellow, and green. And on top of all of it, they tell you about the SNPs. Now, let's talk a minute about neuromarketing, okay? We recognize the fact that if you hear the word defective, we automatically think there's something wrong. You say the word mutation, you think there's something wrong. Well, the acronym for a single nucleopeptide, SNP, we call it a SNP. Well, what do you think of when you hear the word SNP? You think that something's been cut, okay? Let me just let you know this. The epigenome is designed to adapt. That's what it does. It adapts every nanosecond according to what your body is needing. And so, yes, there may be evidence for centuries, but it's becoming increasingly so. I mean, truthfully, who amongst us living can actually speak for what people experienced 100 years ago, 200 years ago? You know, if it's 100 years ago, there might be a few 100-year-olds, but they wouldn't even know because they were infants. You know, if we get into the 110, 116 age range, they might be able to fill us in. But for the most part, there isn't a person alive that can describe what women went through, what men went through. I've seen plenty of evidence to know. I've read a lot of books. I've done a lot of studies, or studying rather. And it's interesting to see the way people used to think, talk, write about health, how to help our health, and how it all kind of got pushed to the wayside, kind of like Tesla's. You know, Tesla studies, they just all pretty much vanished. And although there's evidence to show that we do realize that they were using plants, all of this information that's coming at us has been passed through people's hands. So we don't really know with 100% accuracy what people actually went through. We know what we're being told. I mean, the Dead Sea Scrolls are perfect evidence of that. Okay, so what I'm getting at is, although we want to believe that this is normal, you know, period pain, insomnia, erectile dysfunction, high blood pressure, blood sugar issues, weight gain. I mean, I could continue to go on, right? While we want to believe that there's plenty of evidence to show that this is a normal progression in life, first of all, it's not progress. Secondly, it's degeneration. It's a de-evolution of man. And what's more concerning is that, you know, it's not as if we're allowed to know. It's almost like there's information there, but you really got to dig for it. And then you got to be willing to put the pieces together to actually make sense of what's happening. This is the reason why I say these things aren't normal. We're being led to believe they're normal, but at some point we have to begin to question. There was a talk that Seth Godin did that was absolutely brilliant, and it was really explaining the purpose of schools. It was to create a culture of essentially human robots, people who would carry out tasks and be good employees. You know, the people that we would be willing to how do I want to say this? Comply, obey, follow the rules. This was the purpose of school. Okay, it was to create a culture of employees because companies were growing. But if you think about it, as we entered into school, a lot of information, like I said, began to disappear about the way people spoke, they thought, they wrote, they practiced. And what I'm referring to right now is the way we were handling health. Yes, we do know there's plenty of evidence to show that they were using plants, but those plants were taken away from us, more or less. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they were not the ones they were no longer the go-to. And hey, look, I can give everybody the space to be, I can be generous in the sense that I get it. quality control is next to nothing when it comes to nature, because we have no control over it. All right. So I do understand the reason for having certain things in place, certain systems in place. There's nothing wrong with it. This is not about a good, bad, right, wrong kind of thing. This is about, it's time to open our eyes up. It's time to open our mind up and begin to reframe the way we talk about our health. If you're alive and listening to this right now, your body is working. It's not defective. You may not like the way it's working. You may have symptoms. And the reason this even came up yesterday was I was asked how I work with people if I ask questions, and what I really want to do with what I do with people, what I really want to know. I want to know everything about them. I want to know how they think. I want to know how they emote. I want to know every that might the smallest of things that we have normalized. Okay, from an anxiety attack to, good Lord, bowel movements. You know, it's funny, we don't even want to talk about bowel movements because, ooh, you know, it's like how often they have sex. Is their sex comfortable? You know, there's another normalization. As you age, you know, there's vaginal dryness. It becomes more painful. It's, you know, this is how we've normalized it because we're aging. It's very possible to live a disease-free life. It's highly possible. And our children need to learn how to be that way and experience that, as opposed to being told that they're destined because of family history. Talk about traumatizing. I mean, that just set me on edge when, you know, when I saw people gaining weight in my family and developing cancer. It was traumatizing, just that alone. I mean, I'm not going to get into all the episodes that I have experienced some significant trauma, but the point is that it is possible to have a healthy sex life as we age. Okay. As I said, I want to know everything about the individual. And as I started to talk about it, and I kind of like glossed over there, was bowel movements. It's interesting. You ask somebody, if you use the question, do you have a normal bowel movement? The answer is going to be yes. What are they going to compare it to? If it's been their way of life, you don't walk around talking to the next person about it. I mean, there's some information out there, but for the most part, we don't even know what it means to have a normal bowel movement. And the thing is like, I mean, I've heard people go, well, you should have a bowel movement every time you eat. Well, I don't know that would be, you know, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're eating, you know, for it just to rush through you that quickly. I mean, I've heard that, you know, I think I've heard like, you know, depending on that, there's like days. It takes days for it to form officially pass all the way through. Yet I think that if you're someone like me, if you're like me and you're a vegan, chances are it's not taking as long to pass through your system. But is it every time you eat? I mean, if you're grazing 6 to 8 times a day, you know, if you're grazing all day long, are you just going to the bathroom all the time? Or are you just having one, you know, one official, call it that, having one official. But this is what I'm getting at. Maybe you have one every other day, and that's all you've ever experienced. So that's normal to you. I'm going to say that at least once a day, that would be considered regular, right? That would be you know, as long as it's the same pattern, then you could say it's normal for you. Again, I really firmly believe that bowel movements really reflect the amount of food we're eating, the types of food we're eating, and the quality of the foods that we're eating. But this information is extraordinarily important. Like yesterday, I was talking with a client. I'm helping her with her almost 3-year-old son. And we're, you know, he was having some difficulty with bowel issues. And she hit me up with saying that because she'd been doing all kinds of different things for him, all kinds of natural remedies, and he was going has been going every other day. It has firmed up. She's just using the oils that I'm recommending, but it's still every other day. So she says, but she was kind of connecting it to dairy. And the second I heard that, it registered with me that this is a histamine reaction. It's histamine. It's just like an allergy, like when we get, congested or itchy throats or itchy eyes or rashes. This is the same thing. I know people typically go, well, it's probably a lactose intolerance, or it could be a casein issue. Well, casein's protein, lactose is sugar, and if the stress system is activated, then what you have is an inability to break down carbohydrates and, pardon me, just a moment. I will call back in just a moment because I'm with you right now. So, but like I said, an active stress system or active stress response, which is what I started this entire program with, means that the body, the digestive system has slowed down, macronutrients are not being used properly, and what we have now is an inability to not just break down the macronutrients, but actually assimilate the particles, small enough particles. So we have larger particles in the system, which means so you're not even breaking down the sugar. So it's not a sugar intolerance, and you are going to have a hypersensitivity because these larger particles floating through the system, the body cannot distinguish the difference between a bacteria or a particle. I say bacteria because bacteria are larger than viruses, but nevertheless, it can't distinguish the difference between a microorganism and a food particle. So therefore, now the immune system becomes activated. Okay, guess what the first thing is that's released from the immune system? Mast cells, which contain histamine. There are histamine receptors in the GI tract. Well, histamine intolerance will show up, or histamine issues will show up in different ways. And in this child's case, it's through the bowels. And so what she suggested was that she's going to just start cutting back on his histamine. Well, my thing is, I get it, it helps with symptom relief right now, but what we're aiming for, because otherwise, if we keep going at this level and we keep reducing the amount of foods that he's eating, what you're going to have is this, it's going to evolve into something more. And we're talking about somebody who's not even 3 yet. So the goal is to get his digestive system moving every single day and have him be able to eat foods with histamine in it, because that's a lot of your vegetables. Yes, there is dairy, but she said that she was reducing or cutting out a lot of high histamine foods. That's a lot of food. And which ones are affecting you? It's hard to say. I had a personal issue with tomatoes for the longest time, but I don't have it any longer. I've taken people from going from gluten-free to being able to eat gluten. You know why? Because gluten is a protein as well. And so we see this a lot with people with high blood pressure and diabetes. They are, and autism, okay? But all of these are histamine reactions. They're all histamine reactions. So if we're going to actually we have choices. We can be normal and we can follow the mindset and attempt to control the body, or we can be abnormal and realize that these are signs that the body is unstable. There's an imbalance in the system. The stress response is on high alert. The immune system is on high alert. And again, I was, in the middle of the night, I had this thought. Cancer is a histamine issue. Diabetes is a histamine issue. Glaucoma is a histamine issue. Every health condition we face is a histamine issue. It's related back to histamine. Does this mean, so are we all going to starve ourselves? I don't think so. But again, our method of dealing with these things is to control the symptom. We're very, very specific in the way we address the body. And I'm challenging you to an antioxidant thinking program. I'm challenging you to be abnormal, to begin thinking with the antioxidant mentality, which is not about control. It is about understanding the root of the issue. It's all histamine, but we can't cut it out because it's in our foods. Histamine is one neurotransmitter. It has distinct purposes. It is a protection mechanism for one thing, and that's the reason why it's amplified, because again, the system is on high alert. So what do? We begin to reduce the stress response. Do we address symptoms? You better freaking believe we address symptoms, but we also relieve the system. And this takes knowing your body and working with your specific needs, because it's funny because we have all these health issues. And when I sit here and say it's histamine, everybody, I don't want everybody to think that we're all going to treat each other the same way or treat our bodies the same way. No, it takes a unique perspective. So it takes a remarkably unique perspective to clean up the communication at the cell level. It takes being honest about what's going on with us as far as our mind and the way we react to our thoughts. It takes rethinking the way we approach health and wellness. It takes embracing the fact that this body of ours is actually functioning. We just don't like it, and now we can help it. But it's not about controlling. Help is not control. Okay? If you're slipping down a hillside and somebody reaches out to grab you, to help you, to kind of help stabilize you, it might be somebody, they may not be able to pull you back up, but they're at least giving you the foundation. They're giving you that level of support to begin to help, to prevent you from going further so that you can get yourself back up. Okay? But they're not trying to control you. They're trying to assist you with getting back up. That's all we're doing. So the courage to be abnormal is the biggest gift you could give yourself, because we are at a disadvantage right now if we keep listening to if we keep listening to the information that's misguiding us. It's misleading us. It's leading us in a direction of demise. So I'm here to champion your health and wellness. And when we look at all of these health conditions, we have to understand, like I said, histamine is actually a neurotransmitter that the body needs for protection. It's meant to be deactivated. It's also meant to be metabolized, okay, broken down so that it can be eliminated. So that there's a number of processes that along the epigenome that do that. But if it's not breaking it down, if the epigenome is too busy keeping you protected, you're going to keep kicking out histamine. So a couple of things you can do right off the bat is start using some ashwagandha, an herb, which will help counter the cortisol that's being pumped out. Because as soon as histamine goes up, then the chemistry of it is very interesting. So you could certainly do that as a beginning, and you can also take some quercetin. Don't look for immediate symptom relief, especially with the quercetin. You've got to stick with it. It's kind of like fenugreek herbs. People recommend it for migraines, but you can't. It's not just for an immediate issue, it's for long-term. Okay, so you have to stick with it. So with the quercetin and the ashwagandha, you want to stick with it and help begin to de-escalate the body. And again, I'm inviting you. I have a challenge coming up in the Synergessence page on Facebook. I'll put the link in the description box below. And I would love to have you there. It's 5 days beginning Monday, the 21st. I almost forgot the day. Monday, June 21st, 2021. And we're going to it starts at 3:30 Eastern. We do go live. And for you to be there would be an absolute blessing. I'm going to have things to give away. And a blessing for me and a blessing for you, because I look forward to being able to guide you. But this is an antioxidant thinking challenge. 5 days, June 21st through June 25th. You ready? I hope so. I look forward to seeing you there. Anyway, thanks so much for being here, and I will talk to you next week on the Guts to Be.